Hello, 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 and welcome to an episode of the Sovereign Society podcast that's going to blow your mind. I'm so excited to have Erin Claire Jones here. Thank you, sister, for taking the time to be here and to share your medicine. And as we dive into all things human design, and I just found out you're a Kundalini yoga teacher too.
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I feel like these two modalities are rising. I am sure you feel the same too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It feels like the awareness around both is expanding in such a big way.
It's cool.
It's so cool. And it's cool. People are also making it so much more accessible, both of the systems, in a way that I think is making it accessible to so many more people.
Yeah. And I think there's so many people are craving that right now because there are so many people that are recognizing, understanding like, hey, I've got shit to do here. I got to step into my power and I'm ready for it. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like these modalities have, come into in the limelight in such a way, in such a time, because these modalities help us understand us in a way that probably couldn't have been really explained before, and it's been really amazing just to see the interest of it and like people having conversations of like, oh, what's your human design? Or talking about a Kriya that they did or whatever. So it's pretty awesome to see. I'm interested to see how it's going to continue to evolve too, as more people roll through.
Totally. And it also reaches new levels of people, because it still feels like the people that are adapting it are still the people that are new and early, and it just feels like it's going to keep growing. So I'm excited too. But it's been wild just to witness the past couple of years, because the way people are showing up is so different than they did a couple of years ago.
Yeah. I mean, for Kundalini, for instance, you're seeing less people have to wear all white. A lot of people are actually really stepping into the power of the technology and not so much of the dogma that Kundalini can carry. I know for me, I've been a teacher for 6 years, and there's been a lot of dogma that I've had to clear too, because the system was still created during a Piscean time. And to, be in my truth, there's not everything that I resonate with that was taught to me. I'm a psychedelic Kundalini yogi, and I remember when I was at Satnam Fest, I admitted it to my teacher, and that was so empowering for me of not feeling like I needed to be a certain way or a certain thing to be accepted, but to see more and more young people actually stepping into this, speaking up about the two and talking about the healing modalities of it. It's been pretty fascinating to see.
So cool. Yeah. And people are really making it their own, and I also think that some people that had never heard of Kundalini are now going through training. It's just it's something that so immediately impacts people. They're like, oh my God, yes, I'm in.
I know. I remember I found Kundalini by taking a Pinterest test.
Oh my God.
It was like, what's the yoga for you? And I did a quiz, and I was like, Kundalini yoga. And then I was gonna sign up for a 1,000-hour yoga therapy certification. And I saw the studio in Encinitas doing Kundalini yoga training. I was like, oh my God, that's the training. That's the yoga I saw on that Pinterest test. So I signed up for training without ever taking the class.
That's amazing. That's wild. I was thinking my partner did the 9-month training with me. Mm-hmm. And it was so funny because I took him to one class. I was like, this is going to be totally weird, but just experience it. I want to see if I want to do it with this teacher. And he took one class and he was like, I'm all in. I'm doing the training with you. I was like, what?
Oh,
he was
that.
He was like, this teacher's amazing, but also just this feels amazing, So it was so it just feels like there's so much of that, you know what I mean? It just feels like it's crossing boundaries in all the ways.
Well, it's still important to keep the integrity of the teachings and the Kriya, for sure. I think that's a big thing that we have to be diligent on, and to honor that tradition. Saturn says, it's funny, you can get that middle finger out there. But I mean, I'm really fascinated to see, and I infuse it a lot with business work. And I would love to hear if you're seeing it at all. In terms with human design, are you seeing it work through in that space or supporting that space, or how do you see the marriage or the blend between the two? Because there's not very many human design teachers that I know that are also Kundalini yogis out there.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen like a whole lot of a blend yet. I think that like I generally like I'm not integrating the two. I think that like they're pretty separate for me, but I mean, Kundalini like so informs my practice and the way that I show up,
Mm-hmm.
and like I think in both ways, like I think that I'm always just like, how can I make these systems more accessible? So like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not teaching Kundalini on a regular basis right now, but like often when I do teach, it's like when I'm hosting retreats or like, at friends' weddings or just like community gatherings where it's like people that have never done Kundalini. And it was so cool. I ran into a guy who I was at a wedding with in Morocco like a couple months ago. And like I taught one Kundalini class and he's like, Erin, like going to class diligently since I got back to New York. I'm like now obsessed, but it's just like that's what I love. I love just being the
Yeah.
bridge and making it like so fun and accessible. People are like, I want to go deep. So I'm not integrating the two right now, but like Kundalini does feel like such an important part of my life.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I love that too. When I teach at places, like I've gotten like 5 or 6 people in teacher training after they've
Yeah,
taken a class with me.
totally. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And like I had like 5 friends just go through the same training as I did, like, and they'd never done Kundalini before, but they were like, "This sounds amazing. I want to do it." I'm like, "What?"
That's so
So
cool.
so amazing.
Amazing. So I want to dive in. Let's talk about human design and all the things. Anytime I see your post on Instagram, I'm always like, oh, the projector in me is like, yes. So
Totally.
I would love for you just to explain firsthand if people have never really understood what human design is. And just let's just dive in from there.
Cool. So, human design is a system that's based on your exact time, date, and place of birth. And the idea is that it really gives us our energetic DNA. And we all kind of come into this life with a different, just operating manual and way of showing up. And human design just gives us the language and framework to understand our own. So, in terms of how we make decisions, how we're meant to cultivate relationships, work within teams, all the things. And so, more than anything, it really just gives us permission to be ourselves. And just for context, there are about like 2 billion different configurations. So, everybody's incredibly unique, but at the highest level, there are those 5 different types.
So can we dive into those types just in case? Because I know
Of
some people are like,
course.
I know I'm this, but I don't understand it.
Of course. So there are projectors, generators, manifesting generators, reflectors, and manifestors. There are lots of sites to look up your design, but if you do want to look it up before we go through, on my website, it's just erinclairejones.com/lookup. You need your exact time, date, and place of birth. So the majority of the population are manifesting generators and generators. And these are basically the people that have the energy and the life force to kind of build and create and make things happen. Most important thing in the world is that these people are doing work that is deeply satisfying to them. They're kind of meant to wake up in the morning with like a full tank of energy to use their energy in super satisfying ways throughout the day and then kind of crash and wake up recharged. When they're really lit up by what they're doing, they're literally like lifting up the energy of everyone around us. So like as projectors, which we'll get into, like when we're around a generator that's super lit up, we're just like buzzy and excited and kind of like taking in and magnifying that energy. The difference between the two is that manifesting generators tend to like move very quickly, one, but also like thrive when they have their energy in a lot of things at once. So it's not about just doing one thing, but like being multi-passionate and kind of pursuing all the things at once. So often they've been made to feel scattered or like they're doing too much, but they actually need that level of stimulation. Whereas generators, it's more like I'm going to master this thing, and then when it's time, I'll move on. But I would encourage both types to kind of just really take inventory, like what are the things in your life that are lighting you up and giving you the most natural energy right now, and what are the things that are the most depleting and draining. And the strategy for both types is basically about allowing life to come to them. Magnetism. The more they do what they love, the more it's going to show up, and they're just tapping into their gut to know what they're available for. Then we have projectors, which is you and I. And projectors are basically the advisors, the leaders, the guides, the teachers. They don't have that same consistent access to energy as generators or manifesting generators do. And so our energy very much operates in like fits and starts and ebbs and flows. And so for us, it's all about honoring the rise in energy when it comes and resting when it's not. Like they joke, but kind of reality is that projectors are meant to work like 3 hours a day, which I know is like not always feasible, not always what we do. But the idea is that like you need to really carve out time for input, like to create time just like learn and just like take in information and take care of yourself and like really just like have those times of output, but have it be more limited and not like feel the need to have stamina all day every day. So like a traditional 9 to 5 job is probably going to be a little bit more challenging for us. And their gift is really in being very sensitive to energy and really understanding people, which is why they're so good at guiding energy, whether that's as a CEO or a coach or a therapist, whatever it is. And the strategy for us is basically waiting to be recognized and invited in. So rather than chasing after things and trying to make it happen, it's basically waiting for people to kind of really recognize us and invite us in to kind of share our unique magic, because we bring something so different to the table and we need that to kind of fully be recognized for us to kind of really live into it. How's that all feel to you before we go
Oh
on?
yeah, that's like me in a heartbeat. I mean, I've been diving in, restructuring my group program, my signature program, Thrive. but I've already been on like Bali time working through it. So like I've been up till 8 a.m. working, which would be like midnight in Indonesia the next day. But yeah, I'm totally that. I always say like, oh, I need that 3 hours of sleep and 3 hours of work, and I need a
Yeah,
lot of sleep. And
totally.
it's something I think, and it's really fascinating to see more and more. You're seeing a lot more coaches and leaders, and these people are really, you can tell they're projectors, and they're
Totally.
really stepping up and owning that. And we're here to shake shit up. I definitely feel that.
Yeah. And just again, it's so helpful for like every type to know exactly what they are, because like when we try to keep up and try to be a generator, like we just burn out like crazy, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
like having each person kind of own their unique magic, and a projector just knowing that like your gift is not in how hard you work, how much you do, it's in the way that you see the world, and
Mm-hmm.
paying attention to like where that perspective and wisdom is really invited in the most.
Yeah, because I think a lot of the time too, at least with what I see with myself, is like I'm working energetically all the time, clearing. If there's like something I'm witnessing in the world, and I'm like, this isn't, this doesn't feel right. I'll give myself permission to look within to see like what habits or thoughts or behaviors am I contributing to that, and like fueling that fire collectively. And then if so, and getting radically honest with myself, how can I begin to shift my energy or to shift my perspective or to heal any core wounds that may arise because of this lack of congruency, I guess would be the best thing to say, that's out of alignment with the world that I'm here to cultivate and create. That's a big thing that I see myself doing. That's why I'm pretty active politically and educating people and seeing how, the inner creates the outer, but the outer can influence the inner. And
Mm-hmm.
so if we come together as the outer, as a collective, we can make great change. That's how I do my best to educate in that sense. And also my own inner reality. How am I contributing to my external experience?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that, and that also does feel like so much of the work of a projector too, kind of being in that process, it's like
Mm-hmm.
all of us, I think, are meant to have that inner process. But I think like as a projector, really prioritizing that, and like not like being like output is more important than that, like knowing that's so important and kind of cultivating what you're uniquely meant to bring to the world. And then we have manifestors. And so manifestors are the ones that are really here to kind of initiate and get things started. They're the ones that are here to just like make the first move, start the fire. Like they really don't operate well when they're being told what to do or controlled or managed in any way. Like they're very much here to do things on their own terms in their own way. And so they're going to probably struggle in a company where they're being like micromanaged. And so it's so important for them to have freedom. So whether that's just having their own domain within a company to do what they please, or whether that's like working for themselves just so they can kind of build on that autonomy for themselves. And their strategy is all about initiating, so making the first move, but also about informing. So once they've made a decision, making sure everyone who's going to be impacted by that decision is kind of like kept in the loop so they can kind of follow their own path. And then we have reflectors, which are about 1% of the population. And these are people that are very sensitive to their environment and basically always mirroring back their space. And so you can really get a sense of like how a community is doing, or a company, or whatever it is, just by how a reflector is showing up, because they're taking in all the well-being or lack of well-being in that space and mirroring it back to us. And so the most important thing they can do is choose to be in a physical space that feels good to them, because they're going to embody it. And also their identity is so malleable and like adaptable. So just owning that, like they are over a period of a month meant to experience like being a generator, like a projector, like a manifestor, like a manifesting generator. So like not putting themselves in any box, and just like allowing that fluidity, and like allowing themselves to be surprised about like how they're feeling every day, depending on who they're with and where they are. And the last piece I'll share about reflectors is just that they tend to have this very unique objective perspective where they can just see things very clearly. And so it's so useful for people to kind of really ask them their perspective, because like the way they see things is just wild, and it's can be so useful. So as long as they're kind of really in a space where they're really invited in and honored and, recognized to kind of share the wisdom that they have.
Amazing. Yeah. I mean, it's so funny when you like understand who your friends are, what their profile is, and you understand, you're like, oh, well, this is starting to really make sense. You can't deny that one.
Totally.
So I guess
Yeah.
the whole thing about human design is that it's a combination of various modalities, right? So it's like the I Ching and the chakra
Correct.
system, but in the astrology, what were the other pieces? that
And
creates it,
Kabbalah.
and the Kabbalah. Okay.
Yes. And also there's like quantum physics, genetics, biochemistry, all the things.
Yeah,
So
because it's
yeah.
pretty fascinating when you see the chart. I mean, it's definitely something that I want to dive in more and learn about myself, because I'm looking at all the arrows and all the different colors, and I'm like, this is like, so I have so much wisdom of like so many other things in my head of
Yeah.
knowledge that I'm like, I can't oversaturate my head with any more
Right.
information. So here's Erin. Oh my God, Erin Claire Jones with me, and I'll just like, and she'll explain what's going on, because I'm like, it's
It's
something
a
I'm
lot.
so interested in, but it's so many pieces, and then there's like this, and there's like gene codes, and like so many of these
Yeah.
different tests and tools that are so readily available for us to really absorb.
Yeah.
But it's like it's a lot to really take in as well.
It's a lot. And also human design is super dense. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like a lifelong study. There's so much information. And so I think that like my intention with human design is to just make it like super simple and practical and accessible, because like there are going to be some people that want to go deep, and like sometimes I do 20 sessions with people and it's great. But like most people like want to have one session and be like, give me all the goods, like give me the key things I need to know to integrate in my life. And like we can keep checking in. But I think that for me, it's like I want to give people those key pieces. So it's so fun to go deep with people, but also like often like the surface level, like simplest stuff is what's going to have the most impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because some people it's just so over their head,
Yeah.
and they're just like in one ear out the other.
Right. They're like, a gate, a planet? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, let's talk about how you make decisions, you know? It's like what the teams you work best in. So yeah, so but there's like so many layers to the knowledge. It's really, but it is so cool because when you look at that chart, you can see the chakra system, you can see the tree of life in there, you can see like the astrology around it, all the I Ching, all of it.
Mm-hmm. So what was it? What drew you to human design?
I think honestly, just like the accessibility of it. I think that I had always explored so many different systems and always was like looking to kind of be a bridge with companies. I came from the world of startups, and so I just like wanted to explore something that would be accessible to them too. And so when I first discovered human design, I was like, this is so simple, this is so practical, this is like so transformational, and like I just like know that it will resonate and like impact companies in all the ways and individuals. And so like I just became so dead set on like making it more accessible. And so like for me it's so fun to go into like the depths of it. But I think another thing that really drew me to it is that I think there's so much information out there, and I think often we just like load ourselves up with information and then we don't know what to do with it. And I think human design was like so immediately actionable in a way that was like so needed. And like I could basically give people stuff to like do the next day, which felt so what people kind of like, they're like gonna forget this stuff. But it's like, oh, like I make decisions on my gut, my intuition, like I need a way to be invited into things. Like they're just simple things that we can practice
Mm-hmm.
pretty immediately.
Yeah, something I actually really want to talk about is using this as a tool and not having it dictate you.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people, like for me, for instance, like the wait for the invitation, I'm so that with, like if I see the door open, that's when I usually step in.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I kind of like percolate until it's ready to answer that call.
Totally.
But my friend, she was like, I don't want you to get so stuck and just waiting on relying on other things. And so I want to talk a lot about that, because I think it's still in such like when we're so new to something, it can take over our lives in a way of the dogma, or like, oh, it has to be this way. And we can give away our power to
Mm,
these modalities, and we can forget even astrology. It's like,
yeah.
oh well, Mercury retrograde, shit's gonna hit the fan, then you're giving away your power, and that's not what it's about. It's about having a deeper awareness so that you can choose accordingly. So I would just love to hear what your experience has been about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think one is that like human design is called an experiment for a reason, because it's not a thing where it's like I just tell you it and you're like, that's my truth, got it. It's like it's really up to people to kind of play with it and experiment with it. And like I shared something on Instagram last week, especially around specifically around the invitation, because like I feel like if you're ever using it in a way where it feels like it's like limiting you or you're holding yourself back, then like that's not the right way to use it.
Mm-hmm.
And like even when I discovered the invitation piece, I was like, oh, this feels so passive. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? And I learned that like my work as a projector is just to like make myself visible and available so people can find me. And that has been like so helpful in building my business. And so like, and whenever I try to like initiate and push too hard and like try to reach out to companies, it just like doesn't fly. And
Mm-hmm.
so I definitely like would never encourage people to use it in a way where it feels like it's limiting them or they're like not actually doing what feels right. And just play with it. And I think also what I love about human design is that like it's kind of teaching each person how to tap into their own inner authority, and like in a way where it's like not about looking for advice anywhere else, but just like knowing what it is within yourself that you can trust. So like for you, it's all around your intuition. So if you're getting an intuitive knowing that you should like show up in a different way, then like trust that, like don't trust me. And so I think it can be very empowering. And I think if there are any ways in which people are holding back because of it, like, they should revisit their relationship to it, because it
Mm-hmm.
definitely is meant to be an empowering system, like at its heart, but also one that you experiment with and see how it shows up in your own life.
Yeah. And I think bringing in more of that awareness or speaking up more on that, because it's kind of like a muscle for people too.
Totally.
Because we've already grown up in such a conditioned state of being as it is. And I think this is a huge thing that we collectively are really navigating through, is reclaiming our sovereignty in that space, and just being in that opportunity to say like, hey, this is how, just a better understanding of who we are and how we navigate through this space. And boundaries are something that we were never taught. And I think it's also important to have boundaries around these tools as well.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
like what's being taught about a certain modality or whatever. If it doesn't resonate with me, that's okay. And I think that's a huge
100%.
part that we have to really embrace and honor, because again, otherwise we're giving away our power to another system, which we're all breaking free of.
Yeah, totally. I think that like it is very much, yeah, I do. I don't think it's like helps for people to be like, this is like going to totally change the way that I operate. This is the way that I should do things. Like you really got to feel into it and see what feels right to you. Like I think I always encourage people like take the things that resonate, like leave the rest. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's really like, and like take the layers that are appealing to you at times. Like you don't need to integrate it all at once. But I don't think that like, yeah, I mean, often people come in sessions too where they'll just be like, what should I do with my career? Like, where am I supposed to be in 5 years? And I'm like, I don't have any of the answers. I'm like, that's the magic of human design, is that like it teaches you how to unlock those for yourself and like how to enter them correctly. But like I'm not going to give you those answers. That's part of what drew me to it, because I just don't think we need more people telling people what to do. I think like it's helpful that people tap into like their own just like blueprint and dynamic so they can like fully leverage it in how they're showing up in their lives. And again, the last piece I'd share is that like, again, just because I tell someone they're a manifestor or projector doesn't mean they have to operate like one. Like it just often is going to feel a lot better and be far more successful when they do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like I said, I'm thoroughly interested to see how this journey of human design continues to unfold, because I feel like we've only just really scratched the surface of what's possible. If this many
Totally.
people are already so hungry and craving it, I think it's going to be important to stand in that power and that knowing of, hey, this is, again, this is a tool. This isn't something that's so um, the end all be all, and we need to work and use this accordingly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be. I'm really fascinated, because I just think the whole health and wellness industry, like this is the decade for it.
Yeah, and I appreciate what you're saying, because I think there also has to be a level of responsibility with which we like convey the knowledge. Because
Totally.
I just think that like, and I used to have a business partner and I like worked with other people in this, and I just feel like some of the more traditional ways of conveying human design feel a little bit limiting to me, and the language just like doesn't resonate. And so I think part of why it's taking off in a new way is that there are new people translating it in a way that is more accessible to them, and I think that's allowing us to reach a larger audience, because I think some of the like more traditional stuff I think just like is a little bit more, it just isn't as soft. It doesn't like allow people to kind of play with it. And so I think it's been really cool to watch people like let it be more of a thing that they're shaping in a way that feels right to them. And like again, being responsible in a way that like people like feel empowered by the information and not at all limited by it or put
Mm-hmm.
into a box because of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, because I think even with Kundalini, I think that's going to be such a huge. I say keeping the teachings, like the integrity of the teachings,
Of course.
is going to be a non-negotiable if we want to keep the integrity of the teachings, and it's the best way to explain it, because there can be a lot of people that we have to also be careful of people that are educating about it, but don't really know what they're talking about per se. Making sure that the leadership of answering the call, or the leadership of, being the leader, is also in that integrity, and is in that pure congruence of the teaching.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, like, again, it's just like, it requires, like, to be a teacher and spread the knowledge and share. I think it just like does require so much responsibility on the teacher's end, especially there are new systems like this. So like there are tons of people coming out and be like, I want to share this. And so again, I think for all of us, just like knowing it's coming from like a pure place, and speaking about it in a way that is empowering for people.
I think you have my chart.
Yeah, I have it up.
Right? Oh, I would love to learn more about this.
Yeah. So how much do you know?
I know that I'm a splenic authority, and I think, what is it, like a 4? What is, I don't remember what
2-5.
A 2-5. That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much, but I think so, like, just so you guys can get a sense of like what kind of information human design can offer. So we talked a little bit about, her being a projector, and what it means to kind of be like a leader, a guide, having these like ebbs and flows of energy, needing to kind of be recognized and invited in. One thing I shared a little bit about is that like I felt a little bit limited by that when I first discovered that, and learned that like it basically just means for me, like, and for projectors, that your work is to like, one, like cultivate your unique craft, but also like really make yourself visible and available so people can find you. So rather than be like, I'm going to target certain people or try to sell in a certain way, it's like, I'm going to share about what I do in a broad way and let the right people come to me.
Mm-hmm.
But there are different ways of making decisions in human design. And so for you, your way of making decisions is your intuition, which basically means that you're meant to be pretty spontaneous and impulsive in the way that you make decisions. So like, whereas I'm the opposite, I'm emotional. I need to like sleep on things and give myself a beat. Whereas for you, it's like, as soon as you get that innate or just that intuitive knowing, the work is to just like trust it, even if you have no idea where it's going to take you. And it's so instant. It like disappears just as quickly as it comes. And so for you, it's being in spaces where you can actually be quiet enough to hear it. Like being in New York, for example, like it can be loud here, so just like having a meditation practice, like practicing Kundalini, like having something that allows you to connect your intuition so you can hear it when it comes and like be prepared to follow it. Do you feel like you're connected to it, and do you feel like you are spontaneous and kind of allow that?
Yeah. Well, I'm also a Gemini. I'm a Gemini, and my Gemini's Jupiter is conjunct. So okay. I'm very much so like a whim of the moment kind of person. Like I bought my ticket for Bali, and just I was like, I gotta go, and that's usually what happens when I'm traveling. It's a pretty instant kind of thing, and just trusting that intuition and trusting the way that my path is unfolding is exactly where I'm supposed to be, most definitely.
Totally. And in a way where you're just like, I don't know where it's going to take me. This thing just feels right. And like something.
I don't know, but I'm excited is one of my favorite.
I feel totally. And that's part of what I love about human design in general, is that I think rather than architecting our future and trying to control it, it's like dropping us into what feels right in the moment and trusting that like making decisions from an aligned place will take us all the way there. Another interesting piece of everyone's design is everyone has a profile. It's like a weird fraction looking number. And so you are a 2-5, there are 12 different ones. You could be a 1-4, a 6-2, all over the place. But basically each of those numbers carries a different meaning. So anyone who has a 2 in their profile, so that could be like a 2-4, a 2-5, a 6-2, a 5-2, it basically means that there's a very natural hermit nature to you. So like, it's really good to kind of have time to be reclusive and like be in your own energy and be in your own space, and like kind of just like wait for your like talents to kind of build up. Like, I mean, you said it so perfectly before, where it's just like, I just like withdraw, like cultivate my thing. And then when it's time, I'll come out in the world, not saying so long that like you're, are just like avoiding sharing your talents, but allowing it to kind of build up. But I think also the 2 means that these people have a very kind of natural talent and genius in their design, where they're basically not meant to do the things that come hard or the things that feel super challenging for them, but the things that feel like super easy and super natural. You're meant to be like paid for the things that are just like so just like innate for you to do, like the things that are kind of like unteachable. So often we've been made to feel like we shouldn't be paid for those things, and we've got to like study and do this whole other thing, but just like trust in the things that we're kind of just like naturally drawn to.
Yeah, I try to help my clients really see that the things that light you up, or even the breadcrumbs of the things you were interested in as a kid, it's all leading to your soul's purpose.
Totally. And so often we ignore those, especially if we're like, we don't know how to make money from them immediately,
Yeah, and that's part of the
But
trust
it's just like,
too.
it's so, those things that are innate are so powerful. And so you have, what do you say?
I said that's part of the trust too.
Totally. Yeah, it's just like someday this will all unveil why. And then there's another part of your profile. It's anyone who's a 5 in their profile. So like a 3-5, 2-5-5-2. And so the 5 is basically that there's like a very natural like leader, fixer, problem solver nature to you. And so you're very much here to like come in, save the day, offer a solution that no one else has thought of, and then like remove yourself. Like you're definitely not there to be like in there saving the day all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also this quality that's kind of seductive about you that like kind of allows people to see possibility in you. Like they could see like
Mm.
anything in you, that you could do this for them and this for them. And like, I think for you, it's so important to know yourself well enough to kind of be very discerning about what people are projecting onto you, and like only projecting the things onto you that like, well, actually you can't control what they're projecting onto you, but only saying yes to the things that truly feel like aligned with who you are. So like, just because
Mm-hmm.
thinks you can do something or thinks you're a certain person, like running it through your own filter and be like, you know what, that doesn't actually feel right for me, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so it's by saying yes to the right projections that things like really can succeed in a very powerful way. But if you're saying yes just because people think you can do it, that can be far more challenging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I also see that like after my lightning accident, I my sensitivities got super heightened
Yeah.
because my nervous system got shot. And sometimes when I go out into the world, I could see people's like trauma in their aura. I think
Yeah.
it's a lot because I do Kundalini yoga too, that I'm helping people expand their light body so much that I could see where holes are in people's auric fields or other people's insecurities, because
Yeah.
I overcome so many of my own that sometimes when I walk by people, I could feel that projection of insecurity. And
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, this isn't mine. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. Totally. And like, and you got so much sensitivity in your design. So like the wisdom of that is just being like, I see this and I can mirror back to you, but I'm not going to take it on as my own,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And like another key aspect of your design and anyone's design is that if you look at your chart, you'll see that there are all these areas that are kind of white and open. And
Mm-hmm.
those are basically the areas where you're the most sensitive to kind of taking in other people's energy. And so they're just helpful to be aware of. So you can make sure that you're living like in the wisdom of it and not kind of being like just overwhelmed by it. So like one for you is just like you've got a very open emotional center, which means that you're incredibly open to the emotions of others and like is hyper empathic and like again not only feeling other people's emotions but actually experiencing them as like amplified within yourself. And so the shadow of that would be like not knowing what's yours, not knowing what someone else's, like
Mm-hmm.
maybe getting like so like, you know, like taken with someone else's emotional experience that you like jump into things too quickly. Or maybe you're like avoiding confrontation and like not fully expressing your truth because like whatever you're going to spark in someone else, you're going to feel it more intensely than they do. So they're going to be like, oh, why'd you do that? You know?
Ain't that
So,
the truth?
and so I think the wisdom for you is to be so empathic, to kind of be able to move in and out of other people's ways without taking them on as your own. And knowing that your gift is in kind of like being a mirror and giving them language for their emotions and kind of reflecting it back to them without taking it on as your own.
Mm.
And like 3 of my partner has this, 2 dear friends have this, and they're all writing books on emotional intelligence because like they just have this experience of being able to kind of experience the whole spectrum of like the emotional experience and being able to offer wisdom based on that. How
I
do you
love
feel
that.
that one?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that's been a huge part of my healing process has been overcoming the martyrdom and like stop being that martyr of like, oh, let me just take it in, or the people pleaser, you know. And I think that
Yeah,
was so much of mine because I could feel everyone else's emotions and I just wanted to always shower them with so much love and be like, oh, you
totally.
got this. But or the fixer, like fixing the fixer in me has been a huge part of my healing process. Because ever since I was a little kid, that's always been, I always thought that was my role.
Mm,
You know, I had very traumatic child. That's what I'm writing my book in Bali about, just like a very traumatic childhood, and had to like grow up very fast with emotionally grow up very
yeah.
fast. And so a huge part, I think that was the blessing of being struck by lightning, was having to face that head on and to see, like to rewire and to restructure my emotional well-being, my light
Mm,
body, and the way that I really perceive the world.
mm-hmm. Amazing. You know, and it sounds like that, like, you know, opened up an entirely new version, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, are there other pieces you specifically want to hear about, or you want me to just riff a few, little bit more?
Yeah, just riff. I mean, I don't have my chart in front of me, so I
Yeah,
can't see it.
you're just going with
Um,
it.
yeah.
So one other, you know, I talked about these open centers. Like one other big one for you would be what we call your open sacral center, open energy center. And this one just makes you incredibly sensitive to energy in general. So this one's going to be true for every single projector. And so the biggest shadow for us as projectors, I know this one has been very challenging for me, especially living in New York, is that like there can just be this overzealousness, like just like taking on too much and literally not knowing when enough is enough. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
tendency to basically not honor the inconsistent nature of our energy and just like push through the tiredness and kind of try to get things done, and making ourselves wrong for being tired. Or we can get like so wrapped up in other people's energy that we're like, well, just stay out and keep doing all the things and like not know when to pull away and kind of come back to our own energy. So I think as a projector, like, really, and this will be actually true for manifestors and reflectors too. It's like just finding smarter, more efficient ways to work. It's like not about working harder, and like really honoring the ebbs and flows of your energy and leaning into your role as a guide and trusting that you're not here to do all the doing. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a big one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's interesting because I think that has a lot to do with my Virgo moon, because I love a lot of like creating structures and systems is something I love the most. I love being able to like help my clients understand like, hey, use this money management like spreadsheet I created for you, or like, hey, this is a way to create content, work with the cosmos, working smarter instead of harder. That's a lot of the things that
Mm,
I really want to help people see, because I mean, I feel like the big drive for me is to help people really get that structure, that foundation going, and with a system in a way that is supportive. And then from there, we can start to cultivate conscious relationships and conscious families, and to be able to be more present in life and not so tied to a computer or to a phone. And again, yeah, I think that works smarter and not having to put so much, because even living in Joshua Tree, I feel like I have to always put more out there because I have like not as much fun things to do, I guess. There's not as many things to do as like a big city. And so I'm like, oh, like I just need to work more, which is a huge part of why
mm,
this Bali trip for me has become a non-negotiable for my mental health and well-being, is because that hermit, I can be very hermity, and that's actually affected my energy and my mental health and well-being in the long run.
mm-hmm. Right. And the hermity thing is good to a point. It's like
Mm-hmm.
using it to like get ready for the next thing rather than having it be like the default all the time.
Yeah.
And I think, and I love what you're sharing, because I think that like because you have the center open, it means that you're so here to become wise about how other people can use their energy most effectively. And so guiding people in that and like showing them that they can be just as successful without doing so much. And so like again, you can just be like really tune into other people's energy and make sure they're using it most efficiently. And often projectors are like masters of like systems. They're just here to like make things more efficient in all the ways. So it sounds like
Mm-hmm.
you're so fully living that, which is so cool.
Yeah, I love it. That's like I tell everyone, it's like, oh no, systems are my shit. Like
Yeah.
even when I was in business school, that was always the marketing and like the business and systems operations were always like my strong
Mm,
points, because I do see myself very creatively, and
yeah.
a lot with the way that I see, and like I see like the pieces together, and I see like myself as a dot connector, and how the dots can all connect to create something pretty
Mm-hmm.
powerful.
Mm-hmm. Totally. One other piece that I would share is just around what we call your channels in human design. So these are basically just like innate strengths that you carry. So they're a little bit less actionable, but they're things to be aware of just so you can like make sure you're fully leveraging them. So like one of the strengths you carry is all around like sales and marketing, which basically is all about just like using your intuition to like message and sell things in a way that like people can hear, adapt your messaging to like all sorts of different audiences, but just like you can basically sell anything. So you just want to make sure you're actually selling things that you care about.
Mm-hmm.
And there is this like real efficiency with this strength in particular of this like ability to kind of accomplish a lot more in a compressed period of time than like most people can in a whole day.
Mm,
So it's like often these 3-hour bursts where like when these people are working in offices, they like, do really well the first 3 hours. And then the rest of the time they're like, what am I doing?
crush.
Like, yeah. And so just like it's so important to kind of really honor the ebbs and flows here again, rather than like just feel the need to like um continue and have this level of stamina when it's meant to be more naturally up and down.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that sales and marketing piece within you?
Oh, that's why I have my degree in marketing.
Oh
And
my
so,
God.
yeah, that's what I do. I help people build their online empires from the inside out. And how do we come up with a really solid marketing plan
Yeah.
and a strategy that's authentic to you?
So
Because
cool.
I just think right now there's such an oversaturation too of like coaches, but I really want to help people find that blue ocean for them, and to really step into their power and their truth, and bring all the pieces together. Like I said, as a dot connector, bring all the pieces together of their own experience, and really serve and sell and share from a space of genuine connection and authenticity of like, hey, I see you, I've been there before. Because that's my whole drive. My whole thing with like is conscious marketing, in terms of like, how can our marketing make an impact in the world, not just in our small little communities, but the world at large, and bring in more compassion. It's a huge thing for me. It's like, how can we be more compassionate through our companies and through our businesses, to everyone's, every soul's evolution.
So cool. And just like, again, sounds so much like you're living your design there, and like really it's like the highest expression of it.
Mm.
One other strength I would share is that you also carry the strength of being the creative role model, which basically just means like you're here to kind of just like model what it means to be like a self-expressed individual, and just be like very bold in the way you express yourself. And the idea is that like by being bold in the way you express yourself, you basically inspire other people to kind of be equally bold, you
I would
know?
definitely say that.
Yeah.
I consider myself very unapologetically myself.
So
And
cool.
I say things that may trigger people, but I like that because I like to be controversial,
Yeah.
because that controversy sparks conversation,
Yeah.
and it gets people to think outside the conditioning that they've been so conditioned and structured or developed in.
Totally. And in some ways it really does inspire them to like be that for themselves. Like maybe they're not going to
Hmm.
be as provocative, but like there's a boldness that you're the way that you show up inspires in other people,
I think
you
it's
know?
also, it's like, yes, as a projector, we wait for the invitation, but I think I also project out an invitation for others too,
Yeah.
um, to really step up and to know that they're safe, or to
Yeah.
know that they're not alone, or, hey, I see you, I've been there kind of thing. And I just, that's
Mm-hmm.
part of the compassion that I do my best to really bring in, because I think a lot of us have been navigating through these core wounds of our childhood of
Mm.
unacceptance or betrayal or unworthy, or the rejection. And if I can help people heal from that aspect,
Mm-hmm.
and then really go out there and serve their business, that's the work that
Mm-hmm.
I really do. And I think that's what really differentiates me from a lot of other coaches out there, is I have no problem helping people navigate through the depth of their soul, and to really,
Mm-hmm.
really do that deep work. I say I don't do basic bitch spirituality. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't do like surface level stuff. I want that depth to be there, so people can actually live from their truth, their whole
Mm-hmm.
truth.
Mm-hmm. So necessary, and I think that like, and one other piece of that aspect is also just like a natural leadership that you carry. Obviously it's a projector, but it's like somebody who's like not always interested in being followed. They just like are this leader, and people are like, I just want to like go where they're going. So it feels like there's a way that just the way that you're showing up is inspiring people to show up in a certain way.
Yeah.
And that depth, it's so cool to hear.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah.
So cool to have that reflected back. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm on the right track. I'll see what's going on.
Yeah, and that's like the point is it's like not about telling people stuff they don't know. It's like stuff that they
Yeah.
do know, but they're like, oh, you know what? That is like what makes me me. That is what I'm so good
Yeah.
at.
Maybe they're
Like
not confident in that, but then it's like, no, this is actually you. This is who you are.
totally. And so often we're like, wait, can't everyone do that? It's like, no, not even close. Like
Yeah.
I think we often shame ourselves sometimes, but also just don't even give ourselves the permission to kind of be strong in that way or be skilled in that way. And so I think human design just validates it, especially when a stranger is reflecting it back to you and you're like, oh yeah, I guess that is okay. How can I own that more?
Yes. I would love to
Yeah.
know if there's anything really interesting you see on there.
I mean, I think that like it's all interesting to me, but
Yeah.
I think that one thing is like there's a part of your design where you're definitely not meant to be like super like strategic and focused and like really like detailed about the future. You're very much here to like just be in the flow and like
Hmm.
not even like necessarily like deeply studying all the time. It's more just like by paying attention, like you're gonna take in all the information you need. And you probably don't
Hmm.
even like know all the things you know until like it's literally just pulled out of you, you
Yeah, I
know?
think that has a lot to do with being a Kundalini yogi too. Is
Yeah.
that because I'm constantly upgrading my system through Kundalini yoga, that who I was a week ago, I'm not the same person, obviously, but I can't even think so far ahead because the Kundalini allows me to like transmute things in such a quicker way and a faster way that I definitely see that ebb and flow, and trusting the path and trusting the journey, because like I said, if I can do a Kundalini practice and it can shift everything for me. And I think also working a lot with plant medicines, there's just things that are, I feel like I'm always evolving in such a way that while it's good to have some, visions and those goals, the truth is like, I always am in that of this or something better.
Totally. And like very much with just like, I want it to feel like this, or like be like very broad with what you intend and aspire, and just be like, all the details will be filled in, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this or something better. Like, we'll see what it is. So
Mm-hmm.
just like allowing yourself to be in the flow, because like, honestly, we live in our school system is structured around a much more like strategic focused way of doing things. And so like, you're very much kind of where the future is going, of just like
Mm-hmm.
more sort of just like open and receptive and in the flow and seeing where it all takes you.
Yeah, school
Um,
was really tough for me.
yeah, it
I had a
makes
really,
sense.
really hard time in school. And I mean, I went to like a really, really great university, and I'm pretty well educated, but I always wanted to rebel against the system
Right.
of what it was.
Right, because it wasn't really designed for you, and I
Hmm.
think it's like designed for one way of learning and one way of doing things. And so that's going to really work for some people and really not for others.
So side note,
Um,
how do you see that
going
evolving?
into, I mean, I think that like there's so many ways that human design can be used in such a practical way early on. Like the founder of human design would always say that like human design is really just for the children because like while it's so useful at any point in our lives, like when you actually parent according to kids' designs and give them permission to be who they are from day one, it's so powerful. So I think that like, having teachers be equipped with their kids' designs, like having parents equipped, like they're going to probably parent kids. I mean, they will parent kids accordingly based on like, how to communicate and how they make decisions and what they know that they need. So I just think
Hmm.
it'd be so cool to integrate these tools super early on. Even like, if you go to high school or college and like have a career counselor, like knowing your human design and helping you understand like what teams you might work best and like kind of what containers might work for you. Because I think so often, again, we know these things innately, but we just like convince ourselves out of them or don't give ourselves permission to live them or feel like we should be something else. So I just think I think at some point, like I know that it'll be integrated in the education system at some point, but I'm so excited for that because
So
I
we
just
need
think,
leaders like you to start speaking up on that.
yeah, totally,
Yeah, I mean, that's where when I think about like the future, and you're talking about like that future plan or the strategic and that, those are the kinds of visions that I hold for our future. Is how can we start to equip more? Because I just think the kids today are just so sensitive, but
totally.
we can't support them until we support us in a way to really be seen. And that's why I do the work, because my big passion is conscious family work. That's the
Mm,
work that I'm really, really wanting to step into more. Well, obviously, I don't have a family right now, so I can't speak from that experience, but I come from a very large family, and I wanted to be a pediatrician when I was a kid. So I've always been connected to children, and because they
mm,
are the leaders of our future, and I want to make sure
totally.
that they feel seen and supported and safe to express who they are, and to go out there and share their gifts unapologetically. So, I mean, I also hold that vision of being able to see more of these modalities accepted. I mean, I feel like we're making wavelengths with like meditation going into schools now, and
Mm,
more mindfulness. I definitely think it's a process, but again, as the outer can influence the inner, like I shared earlier, the more we're demanding this, the more that this will start to become our reality.
mm-hmm. Totally. And I think it's all happening. You know what I mean? Like, I think the school thing to me feels like, I think we're on the path there. I just
Hmm.
think that like we do need more people speaking up about it. And I think that like there's so many parents that come to me, and I think that like people are really integrating it into their parenting. But I think it just like, and even with companies, I work with a lot of companies. Like when I first started, it was like very specific companies. And now it's like, much broader, more traditional companies that are like, okay, we're open to this. We're ready for this. So I just think the receptivity is going to keep expanding. And like, I've had clients be like, can I introduce you to like my superintendent dad? And like, I'm just like maybe not yet. You know what I mean? Like, I think that
Hmm.
like, and because I think some schools might be ready for it, but probably a lot not. So I'm just excited to see how it unfolds because there's like such potential there, and hopefully would like give the kids that are coming such a better, more empowered experience, like at the beginning of their
Yeah.
lives.
Well, that's why I'm passionate about politics, is because I want to help create precedent for the future. and really,
Totally.
really take that action to educate and to bring more awareness so that people can start thinking it and demand it. I mean, they work for us. We have to remember that. So I want to help people feel empowered enough to speak up on the things, on the injustice, to speak up on the areas that need more attention, that need more love, that are kind of being put on the back burner, that are necessary for our future and our humanity and our world to really evolve in the right direction.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I'm so glad you're doing that. I think it's so necessary, and I think that I think the world's going to look a lot different, and as we keep evolving. And so I'm just excited to see what direction it goes.
Yes. So, yeah, if there's anything else on there that you think just like would stand out,
I
I would love
mean,
to hear.
I think the last piece I would share is just there's a very and this comes across through your incarnation cross and through a specific, which is just kind of our greater purpose, but there's a very ruler nature to you, where you're here to kind of be this just overseeing authority. You carry this natural authority educator quality to you. Doesn't always mean you're going to be on the ground doing all the things. It's actually probably better for you to have someone doing that for you, but just kind of holding that higher vision, and just again being the educator, just kind of, we call them the king or the queen, and so
High priestess, preferably.
yeah. Totally, but it's just it is that energy that I think really can inspire people and make them feel taken care of, as long as you have the right support, so I think there's just
Yeah.
a very powerful leadership in you. And again, it's all through the invitation, so making sure people are actually really receptive and ready for you to lead, and kind of ready, you earning the trust of them as well, of course.
Yeah, because I think that was I was talking to my sister last night about it, because after I got struck by lightning in 2012, I was seeing everything happening so clearly, and everyone thought I was fucking crazy. But now everyone's like, oh, we actually understand what Sabrina's talking about. So I was
Wow.
very, very ahead of my time,
Yeah.
but no one could understand. Everyone just thought I was losing my mind and batshit crazy. And it was really challenging because I needed that support and needed to be
Mm,
seen and held at a time where it was one of the most energetically vulnerable times of my life. I couldn't be in crowds for 4 years without picking up and having to clear and transmute energy, because that otherwise I didn't feel safe.
mm-hmm.
And I'm writing all about this in my book. And and she was like, yeah, everyone just thought you were fucking crazy, and now we're all seeing what's going on. So that, I mean, I definitely
Wow.
see that of I think a lot of that was about me helping cultivate and create a container too,
Mm-hmm.
to help people really find and discover on their own terms, and not
Yeah.
say oh, this is what it is, and just really surrender and allow other people to process their own karma. And again, not being the one that I'm the fixer of things. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
the overcoming the martyrdom has been a huge part of my healing, for sure.
Yeah. And knowing that you are here to again fix some things, but not all the things,
Hmm.
so just being so discerning about where to focus that kind of problem solving,
I have to
fixing
do this shit
energy.
by myself. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Well, thanks for diving in deeper with that,
Oh
and
yeah.
sharing that. And if you're listening and you want to have Erin Claire Jones here read your human design, you can use the code Sovereign, and you can get 10% off your reading. I'm sure there's so much more to learn from this, and I think it's a constantly ever evolving flow. And I think it's also really fascinating with human design how I'm seeing a lot of astrologers on YouTube
Mm,
and stuff reading human design to talk about astrological shifts, which I think is pretty fascinating too.
totally. I think it's just being integrated into so many things, and I think human design also just speaks we're just coming into a new era, and so I think the
Hmm.
combination of all the different systems to help us understand and make sense of where we are and where we're going is so useful.
Yeah, to really streamline. And I think because we've got shit to do here, so if we can understand our energy and the energy around us, then we can navigate through this time and space with a lot more ease and grace, because we all came here
Totally.
on mission. And so these tools, I just feel have come through at just the perfect time for us to work with them. They're tools so that we can
Hmm.
actually live out our soul's mission and our soul's purpose.
Totally. And just remind us of them.
Yeah.
and give us
Yeah.
the tools to actually do it. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, to wrap up, I've enjoyed this so much. I want to do some lightning round questions.
Okay.
What does sovereignty mean to you?
Sovereignty means just like standing firm in authenticity and power.
Hmm. What would you say was the one book that really revolutionized your life?
So many, but I remember reading the Surrender Experiment early
Mm.
on. It was like so powerful.
Is that Michael Singer?
It is.
Oh,
Yeah.
the Untethered Soul is my favorite book.
So good.
Yeah.
And Surrender Experiment is just like really his life story, but like it was just such a beautiful example of like what we talked about of just like what happens when you really just like aren't trying to architect the future and just like trust that one aligned choice at a time is going to take you all the way there. And so watching the way that his life unfolded was so wild, because he's just like,
Yeah.
I'm here, I'm a servant, we'll see what happens, I'll like show up in any way I need to. So
That's actually the Audible I bought for my plane ride. So I'm
oh my
very
God,
excited.
it's so good. Yeah.
And so he's my, like, the Untethered Soul. I would say for me, the Untethered Soul and the Power of Myth are my two,
Mm-hmm.
and The Alchemist. I would say those are my top three for sure.
Mm-hmm. So good.
Yeah, but I love Michael Singer. He's such a phenomenal human being.
Yeah.
What would you say to younger little Erin Claire here?
To younger Erin Claire, you said?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think I would just like say, just like trust yourself. I think that like there was so much, like I think like feeling empowered to like not have to fit in and do things in my own way, as like, I mean, I've always done that in a certain regard, but I think I always doubted it. And so I think just like wherever you are, like trusting that what you're feeling pulled to is the right direction for you, even if like it's not making sense to the people around you or it's not what you think you should be doing. And just like, those innate pulls are like the things that you can really rely on the most.
I love that. And where can we find more of you?
I'm Erin Claire Jones everywhere. So I'm Erin Claire Jones on Instagram, and then my website's erinclairejones.com, and all my offerings and things are on there.
Amazing. And what last little nugget of wisdom would you want to share with whoever's listening to this conversation?
I mean, I think that, so much of our conversation was around letting human design be a tool, like not a dogma or like a thing that we have to adopt. So I just think that like really like treating everything in our life as that, like as an experiment, like taking the things that resonate, leaving the rest, like really just like trusting what feels right to us and what doesn't, and like letting that be the guide, and what I love about human design is just like it's about learning how to turn inward for answers and like not about asking advice for others. So I think really just remembering that like it's really about just tapping into your own authority every single time.
Yes, aka own your power, everyone.
Yes.
Step into it and allow yourself to lead from that space. Well, thank you, babe, for taking the time and for reading my chart and for sharing your wisdom and your truth and your light with all of us. And I'm excited to see how human design trickles out into our school systems and
Yes.
and the world at large, and to continue to and to help bring these tools to help revolutionize this place. I think there's no accident why we're here and why there's an interest in these modalities. And so we need to run with this to bring that revolutionary change we've all been calling in and we all came here to really actualize.
Yes, 100%. I love that so much.
Yes, thanks. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Go check out all the goods. Again, Erin Claire Jones, all the places. And remember that these are tools to help you unleash your medicine and to really reclaim your power. So work with them and watch what happens and see how this all unfolds. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll be checking out with you soon. Take care. Satnam.